Bake with us, Canada. This week's guest baker is Rochelle Williams from The Dessert Artist. And this week's recipe, cookie sandwiches.
Welcome to another episode of Baking for Change. If at home you are planning to bake along with us, the ingredients are listed on the website. Go gather them really quickly. And if you're not, then just sit back and enjoy watching us do the work. Well, mostly our guest here today. As always, I'm very excited about our guest baker with us today, Rochelle Williams, the dessert artiste. Do you like how I said that?
I do like that. It sounds very French, very
I know.
professional.
I'm kind of elevating,
right?
Because I really have high expectations.
As you should. I've been doing this for a bit. Even though I look young, I have a lot of experience.
Well, I'm excited to see. So first of all, tell us what we're making today. And then I do want to hear a little bit about you and your business. Okay.
Well, today we're going to be making cookie sandwiches. So I do a sugar cookie base for the cookie part. And we're going to make a Swiss meringue buttercream because that's my favorite because it's not too sweet, not too buttery. And we're also going to do a caramel filling in the middle because I am a sucker for caramel.
Ooh, me too, same.
Right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a good caramel? And then my company, The Dessert Artist, I founded that, I want to say about a year ago now.
Okay.
Wow, it's already been a year. That's weird.
Wow, yes. Time flies when you're having fun, they say.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I'm a baked goods and confectionery producer based in Kitchener. I create a wide variety of things like chocolates, cakes, cookies, sweet tables. Basically, if it's made out of sugar, I can make it. And if I don't really know how, I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. And I also focus a lot on Black imagery because I obviously am a Black person. I am from Jamaica. And so I like to incorporate that a lot into my everyday baking menu and whatever I create. For this, we're going to use a paddle attachment just because a whisk would be messy and not really is good for doughs. And even though I am doing a dough, you don't use a dough hook because it's not bread. I know, it's a weird name for something that isn't universally for doughs.
Dough, but not bread dough.
Exactly. Gotcha. Dough hooks are really just for bread dough. So I have my butter here, so I'm going to put that into the bowl.
And is it room temp? Is it cold?
So I would say it is room temp after being out of the fridge for maybe 20 minutes, 30 at the most. Because you still want it to be kind of cold. So like when you push onto it, I can make a dent fairly easily, but obviously it's still pretty firm. It's not melting in my hands. That's kind of the consistency you're going for. And I cubed it up into smallish pieces. I don't know, you'd say that's like 1-inch cubes-ish. Just that way it's not too big, but also not too small. You could go smaller, but why waste your time cutting? I'd rather just get to the baking. I got my butter in the bowl, and then some regular white granulated sugar. Throw that in. I'm gonna put down the mixer.
Start with.
And what I love about sugar cookies is that you don't actually mix it for very long. You actually kind of undermix it because that helps make sure that they don't spread too much while they're baking. So something like that.
Okay.
It's still pretty big chunks. You can still see sugar granules. That is perfect.
Awesome. Helpful.
And then now we can add the eggs. Get that back on. So this recipe just calls for 2 little eggs. Very convenient. And the nice thing, because we're under mixing, you can add all the eggs at once, no problem.
Yep.
And in this stage, you maybe mix it for another 15 seconds.
Okay.
Just until the egg doesn't look like blobs of egg, and it kind of looks like a wet curdled mess.
That's what we're going for, a wet curdled mess.
Because generally speaking, you don't want curdled eggs. This time, you kind of want a curdled egg mess. So in the bowl we have this, is kind of like this soupy, eggy, sugary, buttery blob. And with vanilla, I am sure there's probably a measurement for this somewhere in my recipe, but I am a seasoned baker and I like to do things to taste. So vanilla, I honestly usually just use the bottle cap, and I'll do 1, maybe 2 if I'm feeling a bit generous today.
2 caps.
And I am, so 2 caps of vanilla should be fine. And I find it's hard to do too much vanilla, so you should be safe with doing vanilla. And then I'm also gonna add all of my flour at once. So I'll get in there with my bowl scraper and really kind of just like going at the sides.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna pop this whole thing on the table. So make sure you have a clean table. Very important.
That is kind of important.
And then I'm just really going in there with my bowl scraper just to get all the little crummy crumbs. And then as you can see, my bowl is basically
waste. Yeah, great.
And that's what you want. So then from here, now with my hands, I'm gonna mix it into a ball. Because unlike a mixer, I highly doubt I can overmix this. I'm not that strong. And there we have it. We have our little dough baby. So this big blob, It doesn't look very big, but it actually is if you're not used to rolling out dough. So I recommend cutting this in half, whether that is with a bench scraper, which is the metal version of the little plastic thing I just showed you.
I do not have one of those.
It's very handy because as you saw, I cleaned the table, I just cut my dough, multi-purpose tool. So now we're gonna start bringing in the rolling pin. And before I roll it out, I'm gonna dust a little bit more flour on top, just to help it not stick too much. I like to smush it first with my hand, just because I just find it easy and I find it fun. I really like to touch my doughs because they feel good. So I'm gonna start rolling it out a little bit. And the biggest thing with rolling is to make sure you apply even pressure. A lot of the times, the reason why your dough might be misshapen is because whatever is your dominant hand will be applying more pressure than your non-dominant one. So always kind of like my right side tends to be thinner than my left. And again, that just takes practice. And as you're rolling, you always want to turn your dough. That helps to make sure you have a uniform shape if you are looking for a uniform shape, and also helps to ensure that's not sticking to the table. At this point, I could catch that sticking before I kind of get to the point of no return and I just have to start over. So if you noticed,
I'm learning things. I always learn things. This is great.
Right?
Yeah.
I have brought in the rulers, as you call them.
Yes.
And they actually are called pastry rulers, at least one of their many names. I think they go by pastry rulers, perfection strips, various different things.
Perfection strips.
Yes, very neat names. So now that I brought in my strips, now is when you can actually start to apply more pressure, because no matter how much pressure you apply, you can't make it any thinner than the sticks.
Oh my goodness.
The only thing,
this is exciting.
Right?
I need these. Yeah.
The only thing you want to make sure is that you're not rolling here. If I start pushing in the middle, these are useless. Now I can actually flatten it out.
Okay.
I want to be pushing on the sticks, because then now I can't push harder than the sticks.
Okay, this is so genius. Okay. Are these used for like pie crusts and stuff as well?
I use them for anything that I'm rolling that I need a consistent thing for, which I guess is everything. I can't think of anything I roll out that I want an inconsistent layer for.
Yeah.
So yeah, pie dough, cookie dough. I also make Jamaican patties at my bakery, so this is great for that as well. Anytime you're rolling anything.
On Baking for Change, we support the work of UNICEF Canada. So please visit our website and consider making a small donation to help us make a change.
Here, and if I were to run my hand over top, I can tell it's not quite even. So I'm just gonna go over it one more time, just without the strips, just to help with consistency. And then now, we're gonna use the cookie cutters. I'm gonna show you the way I do it at my bakery with using circles, but really you can make sandwiches with anything. You can do hearts, as long as you have two of the same shape going on top of each other, doesn't matter what shape you pick. So first I go with the big circle, and I generally will just cut as many as I can out of this one round, and then just go from there, because I like to do things step by step. Do all the cutting, do all the rolling, and then like progress from there. So I just cut them all. Now you're gonna grab your baking tray and move them over to the baking tray. I like to pull off the excess dough first out of my way, because it just makes it easier to get to the cookie. So I just take off as much as I can. And this is not garbage, so you just ball it up, put it off to the side. You can reuse it again later. And then now you want to gently kind of lift up your cookie. You don't want to be touching the edges too much, especially because these are perfect circles. It's really easy to misshapen them.
Now, do these come in different thicknesses then?
Yes. So I'm not sure exactly the thickness of these ones because I'm not good with measurements. I just know by the color stick which one I want.
Sure.
But yes, at home I have thinner ones and thicker ones. Generally speaking, the 3 sizes that come in a standard kit are the only 3 sizes you'll ever need. I've never bought anything other than the set that I did.
All right.
And then from here, I always like to make sure that I am matching up my tops and my bottoms because I use 2 different shapes. I gotta make sure that they actually line up. If you did not do this part, that is fine. You can have 2 perfectly solid cookies. I like to have a hole in the middle of my top one. I like to see what is in the middle in case I decide to change it up. And also too, I find you eat with your eyes because with how we do it, we have the buttercream on the outside, you can't tell that it's filled with something different. So I like to show that it's filled with something different. So from here,
you're so smart.
On the baking tray, which is very important, I would not advise to cut the holes on the table because then it makes the cookie more unstable. You're more likely to have a wonky middle.
When you're moving it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And you're more likely to break it. I've done that a few times, speaking from experience. So cut it on the baking tray, and then you just pinch with your fingers, and it's lift out the middle. So now I know I have 4 bottoms, 3 tops, So at least for this tray, I need one more top.
So right now it looks like Rochelle is giving me a facial, but that's actually not what's happening. We're going to talk about this in just a second, but I want to tell people how long we put the cookies in the oven for and the temperature and what to look for so that they know at home when they're baking this.
So before we started filming, I set the oven to 375. So at home, before you start doing anything, just get your oven going. That way it's not an afterthought. I bake them for roughly, it depends on the size of your cookie and the thickness of your cookie. So what I showed you guys today, they bake for roughly 8 minutes. I started off with 7 just to be safe. Okay. Add them in for another minute because they weren't quite brown enough. I personally know when my cookies are done if the bottoms have a bit of color. I don't want them to be like a dark brown because they're gonna be really crispy. Yeah. And I don't like crispy cookies. But I also don't want them to be perfectly white because sometimes they can be done, but sometimes it also means that they're underbaked.
Sure. Great. Awesome. Okay. Now, what are we doing here? Not a facial, something different.
Now we're making a Swiss meringue buttercream, which is one of my favorite methods of making buttercream because unlike Italian, I don't have to cook sugar on the stove. And then sometimes I get this sticky mess. And then unlike French, I don't have to use like egg yolks. For whatever reason, I prefer the egg white one just because of the color, because egg yolks will make it more yellow. So if I want a white buttercream, it's a lot harder to get white if you already started with like a more yellowy tinge to it. So I like Swiss. So for this method, you need what you call a bain-marie, which is basically a fancy term of saying I need a pot of hot water, and then that's what I'm gonna put my bowl on top of.
Bain-marie?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a French term because in baking there's a lot of French fancies.
Yes.
The dessert artiste, you know, French baking. Yes. And that's what we're gonna do because you want to, for example, if you weren't using pasteurized eggs, you want to cook your eggs to a safe consumptionable temperature because we're not actually baking this. You don't want to eat just raw eggs. But since these are pasteurized, they are safe to consume, but I need to dissolve my sugar. So that's why we use the bain-marie. And in this bowl, I have the other 4 egg whites that I cracked earlier. And I add.
So how many total?
5 egg whites total. Okay. And then I'm going to put this on top of my bain-marie.
Oh.
And I did it directly in the mixing bowl because I don't like to have a lot of dishes. You could do this in a separate bowl, but my mixing bowl fits on my pot. So why would I do that? Because I'm going to transfer to a mixing bowl later.
This is the second time you've minimized washing dishes. I'm digging it.
If you can tell by my age, doing dishes is not a good thing of mine. And my mom always made me do them. Favorite. So I was like the one pot cooker because I'm just like, I don't want all these dishes. Yeah. And then add your sugar. Again, just regular white granulated sugar. Important, make sure you mix the egg whites and the sugar together because part of the reason why you have the sugar in here is that it helps you make sure you don't get scrambled eggs. Because if you overcook your eggs, you will end up with blobs. So you just want to make sure you mix the sugar together, and it also just helps it make it easier you don't have cooked eggs.
Can you see me or feel me getting more excited?
I can. Yeah, I can feel you just kind of creeping closer and closer. Actually, earlier she kind of even kind of sniffed the bowl to kind of see what was happening.
I'm like a little kid in the candy store. Yeah. So bring us up to speed.
So I have this on my bain-marie. I want to say roughly 10 minutes. And before it was kind of like this thick, gloopy mess. Now we basically have this like sugary soup. So how you can tell that your mixture is ready? There are 2 ways. One, you can have a thermometer and cook it to a certain temperature that I don't know off the top of my head because I don't use that method. Because I don't always have a thermometer and I don't want to remember numbers. That's not how my brain works. I go by feel. So I will put my finger in it, and if it feels warm to the touch, generally speaking, it's good to go. And then also too, when I rub my fingers together, if I feel any sugar crystals, that means it still needs longer, not all the sugar is dissolved. If it feels like this gloopy, sticky mess that I currently have on my finger, it is perfect to go. So now, back onto the stand mixer. In theory, you could whip this by hand. I have had to do it in, I want to say it was college, or one of my first jobs, my pastry chef was a bit of a, I would say boob, because he wanted to show how much work it is, and at one point, obviously, used to make things by hand. Yeah. Again.
So with that, like a whisk?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Whipping meringue?
Yeah.
No. You're gonna have to skip arm day, maybe even leg day, because you're so tired. Don't kill your arms. Either use a hand mixer or a nice stand mixer. So I'm gonna mix this on high speed for roughly, I would say, maybe 10 minutes or so. Generally speaking, once the mixture has cooled down and you have firm peaks, you're good to go.
All you home bakers, we hope that you have been baking along with us. And we would love to see your photos. Take a photo and send it to contact@bakingforchange.ca. We might feature it on the show, on the website, on social media. So send in those photos today. I'm seeing some nice peaks in there.
Yes, we got a peaky meringue, which is what we're looking for. So just to demonstrate what firm peaks looks like. So when you pull out your meringue,
beautiful.
You kind of flip it like that. You see how it stays nice and firm? That is a firm peak.
Like Dairy Queen.
Yes, if you can do the whole Dairy Queen blizzard thing with your meringue, you're good to go. So if I had done that and it like plopped black down, or even make it that far, just put it in the back on the mixer. You just need to mix it for a bit longer. So we're ready to go. So at this stage, we're gonna add our flavoring and our butter. And I say flavoring because you can really make buttercream any flavor you want. So obviously we're using vanilla extract because it's handy dandy. Gonna add another cap or two to this. If you wanted to make this mint flavored, you could add mint extract, strawberry extract, whatever you really want, and just have fun with it. I like vanilla just because vanilla goes with a lot of the fillings that I do, so it's really easy. So the big thing with this part is that you don't want to mix the mixer too quickly, because as I start adding the butter, which again, I cubed it into smallish cubes. This one can be room temperature, but I don't like it room temperature because I use my hands to add the butter to my meringue. So then it's a lot harder to grab butter if it's room temperature. So kind of similar with the cookies, about 30 minutes out of the fridge and you should be good to go. And as you start adding the butter, your meringue will start to deflate. That is completely normal. It'll basically go from this really luscious firm peaks to this soupy mess, to then this curdled mess, to then this delicious buttercream. It has a lot of stages, so don't panic.
I'm glad you're warning us, because I would be like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
So once it gets to the soupy mess stage is definitely when you want to watch the speed that you have your mixer on, because I have accidentally and unknowingly kind of walked away because I heard like my timer going off while I was mixing this, and it was at the soupy stage and I had it on a bit too fast, and it came back to lovely fleckles of meringue all over my walls.
Beautiful.
And I'm sure at home it's going to be more annoying to clean than at my commercial kitchen, so be mindful of that. So I'm just gonna.
How much butter are we using here?
About a pound of butter, but it really is to feel. So in my recipe calls for a pound, I usually use a little bit less. Just because if it starts to come together, if you add too much butter, then I find your buttercream is overly buttery, which sounds really good, but sometimes it kind of gives you like a greasy mouthfeel. So I do it by eye, because depending, I feel like, on humidity, temperature, various other scientific-y factors, it depends, it varies how much butter you need. So now that all the butter is in the bowl, now we can really crank up the speed, that way it fully incorporates. And if for some reason your mixer is splattering a lot,
why have I never thought of this? Why?
And then you have less mess. If you want it to be a bit more fancier, or if you want to see inside, cover this with cling wrap before you turn on high, and then turn on high.
I'm not kidding, you are literally a genius. The practical genius.
I try, because
that's your other name.
I am.
Dessert artiste, practical genius.
Because I don't like cleaning, as I just discussed with all the dishes.
Less dishes, less splatter. This is so good.
And this is how you make baking fun. When you can take away the chore side of it, you have a lot more fun making stuff.
I'm going to put this on like my Instagram feed and act like I thought of it.
Go right ahead.
I'm like a genius.
Yes, or we can be co-founders in it. Just give me a little bit of a shout out, but you can take credit. I'm fine with that.
Oh, I'll give you a shout out.
And I would say we're almost there. So I'm just going to show you guys what it currently looks like, so you kind of know what the split looks like that happens as it's mixing, but you just have to keep mixing it. So it kind of looks like this splitty, not quite a fully curdled mess, because it is almost there, but still kind of like, I don't really want to eat that. That's fine, you just have to mix it longer.
Goodie Goodie is a non-profit bakery offering training and jobs for refugee youth. And here's some exciting news. If you visit our website, you can find the dates and times for our pop-up bakery, where you can stop in and buy some delicious treats for yourself and support a great cause. The location of our pop-up bakery is Community Christian Reformed Church on Bleams Road in Kitchener. So visit the website today. All right, what's next?
Well, now's the fun part. We're actually gonna assemble our sandwiches. So what you guys didn't see was me finishing the buttercream. So your buttercream is all good to go and ready. It should be nice and smooth, really pliable, but still firm. So when I go to pipe this, it'll still keep its shape. That is what we are after. So I also made a chocolate version because I like to show everybody what you can do with it. Yes, really easy to do. You can either actually melt chocolate and incorporate into your buttercream. The only thing you have to be mindful of is not to add too much chocolate, because adding warm chocolate to the buttercream will make it really, really super soft, and you can't use it right away. You can use it after it chills a little bit, but I'm kind of lazy and I want to eat this right away, so I want it to be ready right away. So the easier way to do it is to add a little bit of cocoa powder, make sure you sift it, and then just add it to taste, and then you have chocolate buttercream. So we have a bag of chocolate, a bag of vanilla, and then some caramel. So I'm going to show you guys a few ways you can like do the buttercream ring that's going to contain the filling center that we're going to add to it. So the most common way that I do it, and the fastest way to do it at the bakery, is by holding the tip straight up and down, and then you're going to apply some pressure to get some buttercream out, have it touch the cookie, and then you're just slowly going to work around in a circle. And I don't go all the way to the edge, because when you add the top, the buttercream will kind of smush out a little bit. So that way it just makes it less likely to like make a big old mess. And then at the end, I stop applying pressure and I just keep going in a circle just to finish it off. That way it's mostly flat and I don't have these giant peaks. Thankfully for the sandwich, because you're sandwiching it, it doesn't really matter. But out of just practice for just doing swirls, that is just always my muscle memory.
Yeah.
And
then
then
have really strong forearms from doing this.
Maybe. I feel like I have absolutely no arm strength, but I feel like I'm also biased. And then another way you can do it is also by doing what you call stars. So that's basically just adding little like bloops all around in a circle. This one takes a bit longer, and the best way to do it to make sure that everything interlocks, if you can see, my hand is constantly going in little like 1/4 inch turns, and that just makes sure that each one kind of like connects. Because as you can see, there's little grooves. If I didn't do those curves, right, then they wouldn't like stick together and you'd have gaps in between. And sometimes that doesn't look as nice, and obviously if you're filling it, that might then have leaking filling. This one is my least favorite, just because, especially when you're doing it quickly, it's hard to have it be consistent, and I'm really big on consistency. And then another way to do it, you can do swirls. And those ones are my favorite because I like doing swirls. So similar to when we did the big circle, but now you're basically doing little circles. So I'm just doing little circles all around, making little lumpy bumpies. And yes, I know lumpy bumpy is not a word. We make up words in the bakery industry a lot, and I just like to make up words.
Yep.
And then the last method I'll show you, and I'll use both of them in it because I like the colors that it'll create, is what you call a shell technique. So basically, I'm going to show you just how to do the shell, and then I'm going to do it on the cookie. So I'm going to start with my pipe and bake straight up and down, and then I'm going to get a little blob. Then I'm going to go on a 45-degree angle, push backwards, and then I'm going to pull the icing towards me, and then as I'm getting farther, I'm going to stop applying pressure, and then keep pulling the tip to make what you call a shell. And I'm going to do that all the way around on the inside of a cookie. But because I'm going to use 2 different buttercreams, I'm kind of leaving a little space and skipping every other. That way I can have 2 tones when I actually put together the sandwich. So if you want to show off to your friends and have something look extra fancy, you could do something like that. And you could also do this with either the swirls or the stars and just alternate as well.
If someone is baking today and they don't have the little tips at home,
if you don't have tips, that's fine. You can honestly just cut open the end of the piping bag and just have it be round and do the same thing. Your designs will just look different because you're using a round tip. And if you don't have a piping bag, good luck. I'm just kidding.
We wish you the best.
You can kind of makeshift a Ziploc bag and use that as a makeshift piping bag.
Yeah.
It's not my
favorite.
favorite.
Put it in the corner of the bag.
Exactly. Fill it, cut the end. Yeah. But it'll do. Or you can also just take your spatula and just blobs on it. If you're just eating it for you, it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be done.
It just has to taste good.
Exactly. So now that I have all of my things going, now we're gonna take our filling. So way before now, I made some caramel, because the caramel, when you make it right away, is gonna be really hot and really liquidy. So you have to let it chill, generally speaking, at least a couple of hours, that way it can get thick again and it's not gonna ooze all over the place. So I made this in advance, but we'll leave the recipe for it, that way you guys can make it at home. And so you're just gonna take this, and I'm literally just gonna fill it in the middle.
Oh my.
The most important thing to keep in mind is that you don't want it to go past the buttercream, especially if you did the whole cut in the middle that I did, because then it's gonna kind of go over the cookie.
Sure.
Which is fine if you're not packaging it, if you're just eating it for fun or just leaving it on a tray. But since I put it into baggies at the bakery, I kind of want it to be level with my cookie. And then now you take your tops and you just lightly put them on top. I don't really add any pressure, because again, I don't want to like have the buttercream oozing off the side. So just by putting it on top gently, that's enough just to have it stick. Now at this point, this is the two-tone one.
Oh, beautiful.
You could call this done. But I like to be a little bit extra fancy.
It's hard to tell.
Right? My appearance doesn't say otherwise, right? So here I have a bowl of sprinkles. So there's a couple ways you could do it. So sometimes at the bakery, depending on the flavors too, because sometimes I'll do like a pumpkin caramel, for example. So the middle, I want to make it look different than the regular caramel, because they look the same. So I might just throw some sprinkles in the middle and call it a day. Or what I would say is my favorite way to do it is I'm going to take some sprinkles, and I have the big bowl here to contain the sprinkles because I don't want to have sprinkles all over the floor.
Yes, everywhere.
And I'm just going to push it into the side.
Okay, that's so exciting.
And because it's hot pink, like it just looks extra fun.
Oh yes.
So
a bling cookie.
So that is everything.
So does that mean it's time to taste?
I think you should taste and let me know how I did.
I think we should taste.
I guess we could taste this.
I'm very excited, but I don't think I'm going to be neat.
No, I would say a cookie sandwich is not for those who want to stay clean. I always find it to be a little messy. Though if you do want it to be a bit more contained, put these in the fridge, let the buttercream firm up, let the caramel firm up some more. It'll be less oozy. But we're going for oozy today.
So cheers.
Cheers. Oh, wow.
Not too sweet.
No. And that's a great thing with a Swiss meringue.
You would think, like you look and go, oh my gosh, that's going to be so sweet. It's totally not.
Because even though I look like the sugar queen, I don't like sweet. I like working with sugar, but I don't want to taste like sugar. It's a nice, just well-rounded, balanced dessert.
So not at all. That's totally surprising. But delicious.
So yeah, definitely if you're making this at home, tag me on Instagram or other social medias. You can find me at The Dessert Artist Inc. I would love to see how you guys do. And if you have any questions, also find me on social media or by my website, thedessertartist.ca.
Thank you so much for coming in today. One, I personally thank you for feeding this to me, but you've shared so many helpful tips for me and for our bakers at home. That's just going to make a big difference. So really appreciate it. Be sure to check her out online. And yeah, give some of these things a try.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching, and see you next time on Baking for Change. Special thanks to Wendy Pauls and Rochelle Williams from The Dessert Artist and Community Christian Reformed Church.